Now, for everything that happened in that Kevin Holland and Derek Brunson fight, the one thing that can't be forgotten, well, is his big mouth, but also they listed him having 2 significant strikes on the ground throughout the whole entire fight. Now, we saw him get taken down every single round. I think the fourth round he got 1 takedown, but I'm pretty sure it either got reversed afterwards or he was also taken down before that. Now, there's a big problem here because we all saw and we also heard the commentators saying at that point in the fight, Derek Brunson's shots from on top were either weaker or the same strength as Kevin Holland's from the bottom just because of how fatigued he was. But when you actually looked at it for yourself, the shots Kevin Holland was landing were elbows like this. Okay, now beyond that, he was also cut up from these two. It wasn't just him smacking like this. They were cutting him up. So there's no excuse there because there was visual damage and it was a repeating thing. You could probably count at least 40 strikes throughout the entire fight from the bottom that were elbows, significant enough to give you some sort of brain damage, you know what I mean? And that's aside from the countless slaps, and I realize that's not significant strikes, but if you look through 100, or not 100, if you look through the 40 of those that happened, you're going to find at least 10 that rocked him pretty well. So you can't say he had 2 significant strikes from the bottom the whole fight. And regardless, he lost the fight, but where this really fucks it up is in the stats, because throughout the whole fight, significant strikes between the two of them, it was 2 apart. Derek Brunson at 48, Kevin Holland at 46, right? So if he only had 2 on the ground, when in reality it was probably over 20 to 30 significant strikes on the ground from the bottom, and it's not like they stole them from Derek Brunson because he was given 18 significant strikes on the ground while being fatigued ridiculously. And I don't think anyone would argue that Kevin Holland probably has the best ground game in terms of at least blocking the shots because he wasn't eating many of those at all and talking through it, right? Like, that doesn't prove a whole lot, but I think it at least proves he wasn't rocked at one point throughout that whole entire fight. The only person that ever had a chance of actually losing that fight, other than throughout the scorecards, was Derek Brunson in the 4th round, right? And I think that's where it maybe comes down to the weight, because I don't think the weight alone was enough to explain Kevin Holland getting taken down repeatedly. But when he was on top and he tried to slam him and it just didn't work, but he was also trying to separate to get those strikes off. And I mean, I think the 3rd or 4th time he finally pushed off, he got off enough to get those shots in, but at that point he wasted enough time and energy that he didn't get the finish, right? And you have to ask yourself, if he had those 10 seconds, what if he had 10 seconds more? Like 3-4 of those shots got in, right? What if 3 or 4 of those shots got in before those shots? Because every shot that you get in, it makes it easier for the next one, right? And it makes the next more than having, because Derek Brunson, he's pretty solid, right? Like, he's not going to get taken out of there. But every shot that you get on a guy while he's on the ground and not responding is a chance for the judge to stop that fight, or the ref, excuse me. And that's really the only way Kevin Holland was finishing that fight, right? I don't think he was KOing him, at least in that position. He would have had to be on the feet, but there was no chance at that point to win through the scorecards. But again, I don't think Kevin Holland did any favors for himself, but nobody's talking about Derek Brunson today, which is also kind of a robbery. But more than that, nobody's talking about the robbery that was done to Kevin Holland just through the stats alone. And that's something that nobody will ever come back and look at until next time, when they forget about the fight and forget about the fact that he did land 50 from the bottom. And then they're going to base the odds on the next fight against this one. So if you lost your money on this fight, I'd say bet Kevin Holland next fight around.